Hi, I'm Ann Carmichael, and I'm going to be presenting on the college financial aid process. I do want to let you know that this session is sponsored by LELA, Louisiana's nonprofit resource for FAFSA completion and college access. Now, college can be expensive, so let's talk about those costs. Expect to pay for equipment, books, and supplies like textbooks, your notebooks, a computer if you need one. Personal expenses like money to pay your phone bill, your laundry, fuel for your car to get back and forth to campus. Room and board, which could include your dorm if you're living on campus, or perhaps you're staying off campus and need an apartment. And tuition and fees like parking, your library, technology, and athletic fees, and your campus transportation. But the good news is that financial aid is available from the U.S. Department of Education, the state of Louisiana, your college or career school, and nonprofit and private organizations like LELA. There are three types of student financial aid: free money, which include grants and scholarships; borrowed money, which could include student loans; and then earned money, like federal work study. Types of federal student aid include the federal Pell Grant, the federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, the Teacher Educational Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant, the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, federal work study, and direct subsidized, unsubsidized, and PLUS loans. The federal grant family includes Pell Grants for undergraduates with financial need, FSEOGs for undergraduates with exceptional financial need, service grants for students of military parents who died defending the country following 9/11, and teach grants for students pursuing a teaching career. The Federal Work Study Program provides part-time jobs to help students pay for their education expenses. So when you answer yes on the FAFSA to Federal Work Study, the Financial Aid Office will consider you for available jobs on their campus. Your earnings from those jobs will be paid directly to you, the student, and should be used to pay your college expenses. And these jobs look great on your first professional resume. So consider this program. If you can't complete your college degree without student loans, then they're a good investment. However, you need to remember to only borrow what you need to complete your education. And it's important to understand the different types of loans that you might be offered. The direct subsidized loan is based on financial need, and no interest is charged until you graduate or cease to attend. These are known as need-based loans. On the other hand, almost everyone is eligible for direct unsubsidized loans. However, the interest does begin to accrue on this loan once it's fully dispersed and then throughout the life of the loan. So you see that there is a big difference between direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Now, remember, when you receive your financial aid offer, always accept the subsidized loan portion first. And you can remember this by telling yourself that the U in unsubsidized means that you always pay the interest. If you make the decision to accept loans, always accept the federal student loans first, because payments aren't due until you graduate or cease to attend. The interest rate is fixed at a lower rate, and no credit check is required. With private loans, some lenders will ask you to begin making payments while you're still in school. The interest rate might be variable, and often it's quite a bit higher, and they almost always require a cosigner. So students and families, do your research before selecting a private loan lender. Student financial aid can be used at four-year public and private colleges, community colleges, career and technical schools, for part-time classes, and to take online courses. All federal student aid and most institutional and private aid is contingent upon completion of the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. Now, you all know that it launched on October 1st, and it does so every year. Remember that student financial aid is awarded on a first come, first served basis. So get your FAFSA submitted as soon as possible. And remember to pay close attention to your FAFSA deadlines set forth by your college, the state of Louisiana, federal student aid, and perhaps your high school counselor has a FAFSA deadline. Check with her or him. To be eligible for federal student aid and complete a FAFSA, the student must be one of the following: a U.S. citizen or a U.S. national, or have a green card or an arrival departure record, or have battered immigrant status or a T visa. If, however, the student's parents do not fall into any of these categories, the student can still submit the FAFSA, but they will enter zeros anywhere a parent's social security number is asked for. You'll want to begin the FAFSA by collecting all of the documents that you need to complete the form. And by doing this, it should take no longer than 30 to 45 minutes to submit your FAFSA. Those documents include the student and parents' social security cards, because you must report your name and number exactly as printed on your most recent card. The student and parents' 2020 federal income tax returns, if you filed one. If you don't have a copy of your tax return in hand, now is the time to contact your tax preparer for a duplicate. The student and parents' 2020 W-2s, because there's information on this form that might not be found on your federal tax return. And then bank statements and records of your investment accounts, because you must report the balances as of the date that you submit the FAFSA. You'll want to begin by creating your federal student aid ID, because this is going to allow you to identify yourself electronically when accessing the FAFSA. The FSA ID consists of a username and a password that you will create, and it should reflect only your personal information. Each student and one of his parents should provide his or her personal information when creating their FSA ID. So remember, use your personal email addresses, not your school, not your business accounts, and don't share information. Students, don't use a parent's mobile phone number or email address in your FSA ID, because if you do, you're going to have trouble signing the FAFSA. Your FSA ID username is your official electronic signature, and it is legally binding. So make sure you record it and keep it in a safe place, because you're going to need it every year that you're in college. If you're ready to get started on your FAFSA, but you don't have access to a computer, you can always download the FAFSA mobile app. It's called My Student Aid, and it's really easy to use to submit your FAFSA on your mobile phone or any other mobile device with internet access. Or you can complete the FAFSA using the web-based version at fafsa.gov. If the student prefers the mobile app and the parent prefers the web-based version, that's fine. You can work independently, and all the information will be integrated into one form when it's time to sign and submit. When you enter the FAFSA, you'll be asked to identify your role. If you're the parent and have permission to complete the entire FAFSA for the student, then you should select I am the student and want to access the FAFSA form. Begin the FAFSA by logging in with the student's FSA ID, because the FAFSA is the student's application for federal student aid. The parent FSA ID will be used later in the process, If you choose to transfer your information from the IRS and drop it into the FAFSA, and then again to sign the student's FAFSA. The high school class of 2022 should complete the 2022-2023 FAFSA because that's the academic year that you're applying for financial aid. If you select the 21-22 FAFSA, the student is going to be considered for financial aid for this academic year. Also, all Louisiana public school seniors must complete the 22-23 FAFSA to meet their graduation requirement. Now on this page, you will also see that you have access to your FSA ID. You can see if it's been verified with Social Security. And if you need to make any updates or changes, if you don't see that green bar that says matched, go in and manage your FSA ID to correct any errors that might have been made when you created it. Next, you'll be asked to create a save key, which is a short series of letters and/or numbers, which serves as an additional layer of security. Say you start your FAFSA and you don't complete it in one sitting. You will be asked for your save key to re-enter the form to continue. There are 7 sections that need to be completed before submitting your FAFSA, and the information that you use to create your FSA ID must match exactly what you enter in the FAFSA, or you're going to have trouble signing it. This means that the social, your date of birth, email address, and phone number need to reflect exactly what you used to set up your FSA ID. You'll first move into the student demographics section where the student will be asked to provide his social security number, name, date of birth, email address, home address, residency status, and gender. Then you'll move to the school selection section where you will report the name of your high school and the colleges that you want your FAFSA data to be sent to. You'll also be asked to report your housing plans on each of those campuses. Next is the dependency status section, where the student will be asked to consider a list of questions which will determine whether he is a dependent or independent student for FAFSA purposes. He'll be asked to report the number of the dependents living in his household and his parents' information. They'll want to know the level of education completed by your parents to determine whether you're a first-generation college student. Next, you'll move to the parent demographics, where parents will report their social security numbers, names, marital status, and the email address you used to create the FSA ID. Next, you'll move to the parent financials, where parents will report their working wages from 2020, any federal benefits that they receive, and the balances of their savings and investment accounts. Next is the student financial section, where the student will report the exact same information. And then it's almost time to sign and submit. But before you do, make sure you review your FAFSA summary page. This report reflects each question you were asked and your answer to it. So a review of this report ensures that the Financial Aid Office receives accurate information so that your aid can be processed timely. And now is the time, if you see an error on your FAFSA summary, go back to the section and make that correction, and then you can continue on to sign and submit. You'll see that the student and one parent will be asked to sign the FAFSA if the student is a dependent student. If you submit the FAFSA without signatures, it's going to be marked incomplete, and the processing of your financial aid will be on hold until you sign and resubmit. If you've listed 2 parents on your FAFSA, of course, the one who created the FSA ID should sign. So determine whether that's parent 1 or parent 2, and then provide that parent's FSA ID. Now, as you move through the FAFSA, you're going to see a question mark beside every question. Click on it if you need a more detailed description. You can also use the hyperlinks provided, request a FAFSA online chat, call Federal Student Aid, or call me at Leela's FAFSA helpline. So as I mentioned earlier, you need to add all of the schools you're considering. Even if you haven't completed your admissions applications at that school, go ahead and add it to your FAFSA. You can add up to 10 colleges at a time. So add your FAFSAs and then go ahead and complete your admissions application and the process. You'll see that in this section, you can only add 10 colleges at a time. There are instructions for those who plan to apply to more than 10, or if you need help, you can give me a call. I'll be happy to walk you through the process. Now, to determine whether the student is a dependent or an independent student for FAFSA purposes, he's going to be asked to consider this list of questions. Will you be 24 or older by January 1st of the school year for which you're applying for financial aid? Are you married or separated but not divorced? Will you be working on a graduate degree during the academic year in which you're applying for aid? Do you have children or other dependents other than children or a spouse who receive more than half of their support from you? Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? And remember that boot camp and basic training are considered training purposes. So if you're moving on after high school into the military, you will not be able to answer yes to this question until you're on active duty. Are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? At any time since you turned 13, were both of your parents deceased? Were you in foster care, or were you a ward or a dependent of the court? Are you an emancipated minor, or are you in legal guardianship as determined by a court? Now remember that legal custody is not always considered legal guardianship, so make sure you have your legal documents with you when you complete this section. These are some of the hyperlinks that you're going to come across: emancipated minor, legal guardianship, ward or dependent of the court. So if you're not quite sure how to answer those questions, just click on the hyperlinks. And then the last one, are you an unaccompanied youth who is homeless, or are you self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? Now, if you can answer yes to just one of these questions and provide a legal document supporting that claim to the financial aid office, then you're considered an independent student for FAFSA purposes, and you won't be required to provide parental information. If you live with a grandparent or another relative who are not your legal guardians and who have not legally adopted you, you still must provide information about your biological parents because they're still considered your legal parents. Now, if those people that you're living with are your legal guardians, then you are considered an independent student and you don't have to provide anyone's information on your FAFSA except for you. But let's say those people that you're living with have legally adopted you. They are now your legal parents and you do not report information about your biological parents. For FAFSA purposes, you're not considered an independent student simply because you file your own taxes or you choose to live alone and support yourself. If you cannot answer one of the prior 10 questions with a yes, then you still must provide information about your legal parents. And then the most commonly asked question that we receive is, which parent or parents should I list on my FAFSA? The rule of thumb is that the parent or parents that you've lived with the longest in the past 12 months should be listed. So that it's easy if you are living with both of your legal or biological parents, you would list both of them. But if the parent you lived with the longest in the past 12 months is either separated, divorced, or was never married, then you should list only that biological or legal parent on your FAFSA. Unless that parent is now remarried, then you must include your step parent because federal student aid wants to know the financial standing of the household that the student has lived in the longest in the 12 months prior to the date that the FAFSA was submitted. If you're identified as a dependent student, but your parents refuse to provide their information on your FAFSA, you can submit it by stating, I'm unable to provide it. However, you're only going to be offered the unsubsidized student loans. Remember that without parental information for a dependent student, you're not going to be considered for any of the grants or free monies available. If you do find yourself in this situation, please contact the college financial aid offices and let them know about your situation because they may be able to find some additional money to help you pay for your academic year. But remember that it's your responsibility to contact them. Now, to expedite the processing of your federal student aid, the student and parents should use the IRS data retrieval tool to provide income if they filed a 2020 income tax return. Using this tool is going to greatly diminish your chances of being selected for verification by your college financial aid office. To verify your manually entered information, they may ask you to go to the IRS and request a tax transcript to be sent to them. If you do choose to use this tool, you will then select Proceed to the IRS. And once you enter the IRS portal, you grab your 2020 income tax return because you want to make sure that the name and address, city, state, zip is exactly as printed on that return. We've had situations where a tax preparer may have misspelled a person's first or last name. They may have abbreviated street instead of printing it out. So make sure that you are using your tax return when you're in this site to be successful using this tool. Even if you've moved since 2020, you need the address printed on that return. And then it's time to sign and submit your FAFSA. But I want to let you know that once you do press submit, you're going to receive a congratulations pop-up. This is your FAFSA confirmation page. You'll be able to see the date and time that you submitted your FAFSA. You'll see a data release number, which you can provide to the financial aid office to make corrections for you on your behalf if you choose to, so you don't have to manually correct your FAFSA if they ask you to. You'll see the next steps that you need to take to complete the process. The list of colleges that your FAFSA data will be sent to, and then you can review your estimated expected family contribution. You also may see estimates of what you might be offered by each college. Once your FAFSA is fully processed, which takes about 3 to 5 days, it's then shared with your colleges. Then each college financial aid office will begin to identify any aid that you might be eligible to receive. Say you want to add a school, change your contact info, or make some changes that the college or university may have asked you to make. You can do that in a variety of ways, but the simplest is to log back into the FAFSA and make those changes. But remember to sign and resubmit your FAFSA each time you make a change. Now, if your family's financial situation has changed since 2020, contact your financial aid office because they have the ability to adjust your aid by using their own professional judgment. So say someone's been laid off since you filed that return in 2020, You had a reduction of work hours or incurred some unexpected medical expenses, your financial aid counselor is there to work with you independently, because they're the ones who are going to make your financial aid offer. And the numbers you see on your FAFSA confirmation page are simply estimates to them. And they do this because they are trying to determine your net price. Your net price is going to be what you're responsible for paying. They're going to do this by taking the cost of attendance on their campus and subtracting any money they can find to offer you to attend there. Now remember that the net price can either be paid in cash or by accepting student loans to pay that balance. The student will receive a financial aid offer from each school that he listed on the FAFSA. It's going to reflect the college's cost of attendance, and then line item every grant, every scholarship, your work study position, and any student loans that they can offer you. So make sure you're reading your offers carefully and responding to any requests for additional information. Now, once you decide which college you're going to apply to, that you're going to attend, you want to accept your aid offer in this order. Scholarships and grants, because this is gift aid that doesn't have to be repaid. Federal work study next, because this is earned money that does not have to be paid back because you have earned it. And then loans. Loans are borrowed money and they must be repaid with interest. Now, we all know that scholarships are gifts that don't have to be repaid. So now is the time to begin or to continue your search. They're offered by colleges, employers, private and nonprofit companies, community, religious, and social organizations, just to name a few. Some will be merit-based, awarded on your academic achievement, or perhaps a special talent or trait that you might have. Other scholarships are need-based. Applying for and winning these scholarships will greatly reduce the cost of your education, which means, bottom line, it will reduce your student loan debt. This year, LELA will award a $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship for seniors attending a Louisiana high school, and a $1,000 Choose Louisiana scholarship for students attending a college in the state of Louisiana. You can visit lela.org for the details or contact me directly and I'll send you the applications. For students or parents who need additional help paying for college, after you've accepted all of your scholarships, grants, federal and state dollars, LELA administers a nonprofit education loan program called LELA Choice, and it's for Louisiana residents only. You can find out more about that at lelachoice.org. And remember, to keep receiving financial aid, you must complete a FAFSA every year that you're in college. If you haven't already received a copy of LELA's free FAFSA completion guide for the class of 2022, I would be happy to send it on to you. You can email me directly. Now, to recap, here are some things that you need to make sure you're doing this fall. Complete the 22-23 FAFSA as soon as possible. Review that FAFSA summary and the student aid report that federal student aid will send you once you complete your FAFSA, and go in and make any corrections that are needed. Register for and take your standardized tests and retake them if you need to. Apply to your colleges that you're interested in. And pay close attention and meet every deadline set forth. Ask your counselor and teachers to submit a transcript, letters of recommendation, whatever is requested from your college admissions and financial aid office. And then continue your scholarship search. So be sure you're jotting down my contact info. If you need help completing your FAFSA, if you have a question about the financial aid process, give me a call on Leela's FAFSA helpline. If you want to email me for a copy of the FAFSA completion guide or for any other reason, please do so.